Amazing.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to D's Corner. I'm your host, D. We're going to continue on with our offseason outlook, AFC edition, free agency. We're going to talk the AFC North and free agency, what these teams need, what these teams may do, and what's the outlook for the free agency. So let's jump right into it. We're going to go worst to first. The worst team this past season was the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously due to the Joe Burrow injury. The team kind of faltered. Obviously, you go down your main gunslinger. That's kind of what happens. This team has consistently dealt with injuries, it seems, well, especially dealing with Joe Burrow. So protecting Joe Burrow is going to obviously come first. They will lose Jonah Williams. There has been talks. What are we going to do with Joe Mixon? They did tag T. Higgins, which is potentially a tag and trade. They do have, let me check, they have roughly $48 million. So what are they going to do? They will need to retool their line. They will need to retool their defense as well. They drafted Young in the secondary. Jordan Battle out of Alabama at safety. They do have DJ Turner. They also have Cam Taylor-Britt at the secondary position, who can supplement some of the losses, especially with possibly losing Chidobe Awuzie. But if it's my guess, I'm going to guess offensive line. We, as the Cincinnati Bengals, have the only quarterback in the NFL who has beat Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. We have to make sure we can get this guy to the postseason. We have to do everything that we can to build up around this guy. Build up the line, decide what we're going to do with Joe Mixon, possibly trade him or possibly release him. They did ask him to restructure last year. We'll see how and where that goes. With this being such a wide receiver stacked draft, I think Mel Kiper might have 26 wide receivers in his top 50 players. There's been talks of 10 to 12 possible first round talent wide receivers. Obviously, that many won't go in the first round, but I can see a team like the Arizona Cardinals, if they miss out on Marvin Harrison Jr., do you trade back a little, get you a Malik Neighbors, and then trade that 27th pick for T. Higgins? You trade a second round pick for T. Higgins. I think with how things are going, especially with Cincinnati, they did just pay Joe Burrow. They have a large contract that's going to be coming for Jamar Chase. Do they want to tie up that much money into two wide receivers and your quarterback? That is something I just don't see likely to happen. This team is not necessarily known for splurging on players as well. So we'll see how that goes. But if I have to guess and if I have to predict, it's going to be offensive line heavy in this free agency market, especially when you know that you have to protect Joe Burrow. Without your quarterback, this team is not a Cleveland Browns where their defense is going to lead them all the way and they can get a guy off the couch. All right, so next up, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers seem to never have a losing record. For what it's worth, is that really worth something if you're not having a victory, if you're not having wins in the playoffs, if you're not getting to the big game? Does that truly matter? This team here is also going to be offensive line heavy. They don't know if they're going to pick up Najee Harris's fifth-year option. Jaylen Warren seemed to be the better of the running backs when it came to running the ball. They do have some talented wide receivers who are also divas. I read this morning that they will be taking trades or fielding calls, if you will, for Deontay Johnson, somebody who can possibly get them something in return. With this being such a heavy wide receiver class in the draft, I don't see it being anything more than maybe a fourth, third, depending on what the comp picks that just came out, maybe a third. But I don't see too much. This team has always been able to draft wide receivers. They just always seem to get the big head being in Pittsburgh. And this is not that type of town. This is not that type of team. This is not that type of culture. Well, I can't say culture. I guess it is that type of culture because that's what they do. So we'll see. But if I had to guess, I would assume that they're going to also build up their offensive line. Now, we all know Kenny Pickett is not the guy. Russ has been visiting. Russ had a visit. They said the visit went well. With what they would have to pay Russ, do I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are Russell Wilson away from championship to being a championship team? I don't, but I do think that with how this team's defense is able to carry them, how this team has been able to play with all the different quarterbacks that they've had, aging Ben Roethlisberger, Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, they all some way, they always find a way to come out with a winning record. But again, like I said, what does that really mean? I think that Russell Wilson could find a better fit. However, the more loyal fit would probably be with Pittsburgh and how Tomlin is about his players. Tomlin rarely throws a player under the bus. And I think that retooling this offensive line, getting you a veteran quarterback to push or start over Kenny Pickett allows your running game to be able to go. Russell Wilson is a very good deep thrower of the ball, still with his age and decline of some of his athleticism. He can still throw the ball pretty well. If you look last year, he didn't turn the ball over a lot, and that's a plus, and especially in this division, which I think is the toughest division. Not necessarily by record, but this team is hard. This division is hard-nosed. Every single one of these teams is going to hit you. Every single one of these teams is going to fight you. They beat each other up every single year. Every single year they beat each other up. So we know that the Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't have a lot of cap space. They have released Mitchell Trubisky. They have released Patrick Peterson. So you'll need to find someone to play safety alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick, as well as another corner opposite Joey Porter Jr. TJ Watt has been hurt. If I'm not mistaken, he got hurt prior to the postseason game, which that seems to hurt them as well. But they always seem to have solid outside linebackers who can rush the quarterback. This defense, some of the players are getting along a little long in the tooth, especially Cam Hayward. I could definitely see them trying to boost the trenches on both sides of the ball, either in free agency or the draft. Possibly the draft when it comes to the offensive side, the offensive line. Most likely free agency when it comes to the defensive front. They're going to want to try to get some players to try to build, because with the Baltimore Ravens losing some significant pieces, excuse me, not just on the field, not just player-wise, they did lose their defensive coordinator. You are going to lose certain players. Joe Burrow coming back from injury, Deshaun Watson also coming back from injury, Nick Chubb coming back from injury. AFC North is up for grabs. Do we think that the Steelers can grab it with a Russell Wilson? In my honest opinion, I do not. I think this team will be the last. I think this team will hold the last place in the AFC North. So our next team, we're going to talk about those Cleveland Browns. This was my dad's favorite team, him being from the area. RIP Dad. So let's talk about the Browns and what they need. Or let's just talk about the Browns in general. This team lost their starting running back, their starting quarterback. It seemed like they lost every quarterback they had and ended up going to the playoffs with a older off the couch Joe Flacco. Nick Chubb and that knee injury. What are we going to do here? I think out of loyalty to the player, I believe that they would keep him. I don't think that they would release him. It would be a shock to me if they did, and I think it'd probably be a shock around the league if they actually released Nick Chubb. Joe Flacco. Do they bring Joe Flacco back? Does Joe Flacco want to come back as a backup? You're paying Deshaun Watson way too much money for him to be a backup. Are we able to see and get some glimpse of what Deshaun used to be? He was having a decent game and showing some of the playmaking ability he showed in Houston before he went down with the injury. This defense, Jim Schwartz is that guy when it comes to defense, because this defense came and took over the league by storm. They are, if I'm not mistaken, Zadarius Smith is also a free agent. You're still going to want to probably try to bring him back and shore up that defensive front because you have that freak Myles Garrett. I can't remember what team it was, but he just was bouncing from left to right to left to right to the point where the offense got a delay of game because they were trying to send as many blockers to wherever he lined up. When you have a player that's in your entire offense's head like that, that speaks of the caliber of player he is, and it speaks to what you're able to do behind that type of player. They do have some holes that they'll need to fill in their linebacking core and on their defensive front. I'm pretty sure that their secondary is set. Grant Delpit, Juan Thornhill, Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Emerson as well. So I'm pretty sure like they're set there. They could add some depth players. They also don't have a ton of money due to the Deshaun Watson contract. Are we going to get Amari Cooper back? Are we going to be able to find him a complimentary piece? They don't have a first round pick, but the good thing about this draft is it is extremely deep when it comes to the wide receiver position. If you get Deshaun as many weapons as you can to go along with this defense, who is pretty much set, this team could come out and be the Kings of the North. This team could come out and be able to play a style of bully ball that we haven't seen played for a while in the NFL. This team of the Cleveland Browns showed heart. They showed drive last year. They showed the ability to win and win close games. They won a bunch of fights. They beat the 49ers. They beat the Texans. Obviously, that was before the playoffs because then CJ came in and was CJ. But this team here is not a bad team. This is not the normal Cleveland Browns. This team seems to be on a trajectory heading up. It's not skyrocketing up, but it is stepping level by level by level to the point that we could definitely see this team further along in the playoffs. And with the departures in Cleveland, the rehabilitation coming in Cincinnati, and the retooling, rebuilding-ish, if you want to say, in Pittsburgh, I can see the Cleveland Browns winning this division. Again, this division is pretty much up for grabs. There's no one that's set in stone. But before all of that is done, we do need to talk about the AFC North champs and if we're able to get them knocked off. Right now, to beat a guy, you got to beat the guy. And those guys are the Baltimore Ravens. So the Baltimore Ravens, they do not have a lot of cap money. They're going to need to retool their offensive line. They have some, both of their guards are free agents. You're going to want to bring in another right tackle. You're going to want to bring in some edge because Kyle Van Noy as well as Jadeveon Clowney are both free agents. Are we going to be able to get what we need? Chop Robinson in the draft, I could definitely see him lining up as a Baltimore Raven. He also, the other guy from Penn State, he changed his name, but he also came from Penn State, was also a freak of nature, also is an edge rusher. So those two could be a nice complementary piece. Two complementary pieces to one another. Now, what we're going to do in the secondary, because you are going to lose Geno Stone, which is well deserved on his part, but you do have Kyle Hamilton as well as Marcus Williams. You still have Marlon Humphrey, who is a young corner. You will need to get him a battle buddy. You'll need to get him a running mate to play on that opposite side of him. Because Marlon moves, Marlon travels, Marlon goes in the slot. So you're going to need to get you another strong corner, maybe two. But the good thing about it is there's a plethora of veterans that you could get who have coming off injuries, who you could possibly get for cheap, as well as this being a deep draft at the cornerback position. The positions that the Ravens need, this is a deep draft for: offensive line, wide receiver, and corner. Yes, they did get Zay Jones. They will lose OBJ most likely. Rashad Bateman is a nice complimentary guy, but I think they're going to need them that number one target, that number one go-to guy. And I honestly think that they should try to trade for Brandon Ayuk if Ayuk is on the trade block. To me, he just seems like he would be a perfect fit in the Baltimore Ravens scheme, the Baltimore Ravens culture, and in the community. I think he would be someone who can get along well with with Lamar Jackson. Also, he's a young guy. He's a young guy. He's been to the Super Bowl. He knows how to play. He knows what he's doing. He's consistent with tracking the ball, even if it bounces off of the defender's face mask. This is not a bad. This would not be a bad marriage. That would be my main go-to for the Baltimore Ravens. Also, they will need to, like I said, they'll re-sign their offensive lineman, Zeitler. Yeah, Kevin Zeitler has already stated that he would like to come back. He's a little older, so this could possibly be a 1, maybe max 2-year deal, just to see if he's able to go win something with the Baltimore Ravens. So, with the AFC North and the free agency outlook for the offseason, I am thinking offensive line throughout the division, secondary for the most part, and wide receivers. We are going to want to see and continue to have this division as a bloody nose, bare knuckle brawling division. This is the division where you're going to want to watch just for the hits. You're going to want to watch for the physicality. This division is one of those divisions in football that make football fans like myself remember what football truly was. And with the Baltimore Ravens, they did just re-sign Justin Madubuike. I do not know that they'll be able to sign Patrick Queen, but they drafted Trent Simpson from Clemson last year, who is capable of stepping up in that role, being next to Roquan Smith, someone who can help lead him and get him there. So there are some little minor holes that need to be filled here and there for the Baltimore Ravens. However, again, I've stated throughout this video, I believe that the AFC North is up for grabs. My top 2 teams would probably be Baltimore and the Cleveland Browns, and that's just right now based off of Joe Burrow coming back from injury, and I don't believe in the Steelers at all. That's just, my take. Let me know what you guys think. At the bottom, comment, like, subscribe, tell me how I'm doing. Let me know, but that's all I got for today and for the AFC North free agency offseason outlook. Again, thank you for giving me your time and watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.